this computer. Okay. So, so note takers are money makers. I think the second thing is make sure you're putting all the questions in the QA box. We do have a separate segment that where you can unmute yourself and ask your questions, but I think my memory is not always that good. So if you have a question and it's burning, just put it in the chat box. And then the third thing is open up your mindset. Really use this hour that we have together to really just open up your mind, limit the distractions that you have. I know sometimes it's a lot going on and that's not possible, but really just try and be present in this moment. The webinar is being recorded, so if you do have to jump off, it will be available. And then please, please, please keep yourself on mute at all times. So, like I said, we just went through housekeeping. I'll do a brief introduction of who I am, the agency. I have cut down the virtual assistant PowerPoint because, like I said, I really want this to be beneficial. I really want to hear from you guys rather than me talking. So if you weren't here on the first webinar, I highly recommend watching the replay. We can send you the replay it's on YouTube, but we can send it to you. But I do want to set the landscape of what a virtual assistant is, how do you become one, what does that look like? And then we'll really jump into questions and answers where we'll go through any of the challenges that you're having, what questions you have, and then so on and so forth. So welcome to the club. We're lit over here. We have a lot to cover, so I'm very glad that you guys decided to come on in. So the Virtual Hustler Agency, we are a business support agency helping small business and entrepreneurs automate the back end of their business. So we are basically a virtual assistant support agency, and we implement systems and softwares into businesses. So this is our niche of virtual assisting. This is more on the high end of operations and systems. Usually when I first started in my journey, I was just an administrative virtual assistant, and then I switched over to operations and systems because I enjoyed that and I made more money from it. And then a larger part of the virtual assistant is that we're building a network of aspiring and growing virtual assistants so that eventually we can basically start to fill different roles of you coming through our agency and being able to fill them into different positions. So, and then the other part is that we also offer coaching. We offer one-on-one coaching and group coaching. We'll talk about that a little after, but that is also another opportunity. And really what I like to tell people is the reason why I started the Virtual Hustler Agency is one, because I am somebody who I want you to strive for the lifestyle of your dreams. So my lifestyle of my dreams is very luxury, being able to travel when I want, work whenever I want. And I always tell people that you should do the same. Whatever you want in life, it is truly attainable. You just have to believe it, and then you have to do the necessary work to put that into action. So I have two things that I always say. I enjoy helping business owners like me, but I also enjoy more building a community of virtual assistants. So that is really why this is here. This is why this webinar is here, so that you can really be able to tap into this opportunity, which has been such an amazing opportunity for me, and I hope it is for you as well. So I also like to set the tone so people don't think like, okay, well, maybe she has a different advantage. Who is she? So I'm Kevway. I am 23 years old, born and raised in the Bronx. I currently live in New York. And really my trajectory into virtual assisting was I've worked any job from retail all the way to corporate America, right? So I have a lot of experience working in customer service. I did a lot of internships during my high school and college years. I went to college. I was like, I don't like working, but I have to do it to survive. And it really wasn't until I was like, well, let me use the necessary skills that I'm learning at these internships and jobs and capitalize on them, right? So I came into corporate America doing a lot of administrative work, and then I used those necessary skills and tools. They were paying me a salary to do it. And I was like, well, I can do this hourly and charge business owners. And that's what I did. So within my journey, I had to do a lot of research. I made a lot of mistakes. I fumbled the bag a lot of times. I made a lot of money doing it. I was happy some days and crazy other days. But I say to say that within your virtual assistant journey, it is not a walk in the park. And I always let people know that like I didn't start hitting $10,000 months until years later. So I started in baby steps. When I first started this, I was making anywhere between $500 to $2,000 a month. And then when I started investing in myself, I kid you not. That's when I hit my highest month of $15,000 a month doing virtual assisting. So it is possible, but you do not get there overnight. And I always let people know that like my journey is very similar to what your journey can be, right? So whether you're working a 9 to 5, whether you're living at home, whether you're a college student, I'm trying to tell you that it is possible. You just have to have a clear path on what you're trying to do. And I like to sum it up by like, just in general, who I am. So like I said, I'm from New York. I enjoy traveling. I enjoy creating the lifestyle of my dreams. So that means waking up and saying, well, I want to take a flight today. I don't want to clock into work today. That is the type of lifestyle I dream of. So I look for opportunities that are going to allow me to do that. And then pretty much what I did is I capitalized on the experiences that I had. And then I replicated that into how can I show up for business owners so that they can pay me to do what my job is paying me to do. We'll talk a little bit more about it, but pretty much that is my journey. And I majored in sociology and criminology. So if you are currently in school, it doesn't really matter what your major is. My major didn't dictate what I'm doing now. Sociology and criminology has nothing to do with what I'm doing, but I'm saying it to say that your career path doesn't have to be like, okay, well, I didn't do this, I didn't do this. It's whatever it is you currently have going on that you can use those necessary tools and experiences to become a virtual assistant. All right, so I always set the tone. 2022 is my year. I literally say this every day, even on my bad days, my worst days, and my best days, because I think it's super important to set the tone and believe that 2022 is your year. 2022 is my year. I have a lot of goals to achieve, a lot of things to do. So you need to put into your mindset that 2022 is your year. And you do this by telling yourself this and then putting yourself in an action plan to get to where you want to be. So let's jump into it. What is a virtual assistant? So a virtual assistant is an independent contractor who provides administrative services, right? That is the general definition of virtual assistant. It has changed over time as we're moving to a digital age. But really the key components of being a virtual assistant is that you work from home. You can work anywhere in the world from home. And really what's happening is business owners are hiring virtual assistants to help them maximize their efficiency and boost profitability. So if you know any small business, when you're a small business, it's usually just one person trying to run everything. And then eventually they get to a point where they can't do that because they need more time, they need more help, and it's going to take them longer to learn. So what a lot of business owners do is that they will hire a virtual assistant. And this virtual assistant will come in and they'll help with maybe 10 hours, 20 hours, 30 hours a month. And that employer will then, or that business owner will pay them for their time and their service and their expertise, right? So within being a virtual assistant, a lot of the terminology is independent contractor, freelancer, or you're working under an agency. So there's different realms to be a virtual assistant, but they all fall under the same bucket of that you are an independent contractor. So that means that you set your own terms and conditions. You provide your own, like they don't give you a laptop. There's no 401k, there's no HR. You are your business owner, right? So it's super important that as you're entering into this space that you are either charging hourly or you are charging, what I like to do is packages. And in rare cases, you might receive a salary. It's pretty rare. Or a lot of, especially when you're moving up with your clients, a lot of my current clients are on retainers. So that doesn't, if I work 1 hour, they're still going to pay me X amount. But that is when you have progressed with clients for a long period of time and that you build trust where they're like, oh yeah, Kevway knows what she's doing. I'm literally paying her to just be here, right? So I always tell people, set the tone that you can start either hourly, you can start at a package, whatever works best for you, or even just charging per package, and then scale your way up. But the key thing is you want to build trust with your potential clients or clients in general so that you can get to that point. Oh my gosh, what is going on? Hold on. This is why I don't need to be doing this. Okay. So a lot of the times people are hiring, like I said, small businesses, they're either too busy or they don't have enough time or they're trying to grow and scale. And I like to talk through like, what are the benefits of becoming a virtual assistant? And like, what are my favorite benefits is really being able to call the shots. You are the one that is able to set the tone and you can do what you love. So I enjoy operations and I enjoy like turning chaos into non-chaos, turning chaos into systems and processes and operations. And that is something that I love to do. So when you're becoming a virtual assistant, I always say it's important to understand that, yes, you can make a lot of money in this industry, but the money is not what keeps you there. Because remember, you still have to wake up every day and do it. So you want to make sure that if you love organization, you should do that because you love it, not because you can make a lot of money from it. And I say it to say, in terms of calling this, in terms of calling the shots, you're setting your pricing, right? There's nobody out here who's going to say like, this is your pricing. You set your pricing however much you want, however much you think you're worth hourly, right? Now, I know people are like, okay, well, I'll charge $100 an hour. Of course, let's be realistic, right? I think it does boil into like your factor pricing of like how much you have to pay in taxes. What does your day-to-day look like? How much time do you have? So I always say when you are crafting your pricing, it's super important to take into different things of like, what expenses do you have? Do you have children? What, like, is this your full-time job? So like when you're coming up with your pricing, it's super important that yes, you do set the tone, but it is important to have a realistic hourly rate or package deal so that business owners can actually hire you and you're not scaring them away. And then I think the second thing is working from any and everywhere, right? So my favorite part about being a virtual assistant is that I'm not tied to being in a cubicle office. I'm not tied to being at my desk. I can take my laptop any and everywhere as long as I have Wi-Fi. So that is a luxury that I enjoy. And I think being able to work from anywhere in the world is super important. I always tell people you can work from anywhere, but depending on where your client is located. So a lot of my clients are Eastern time or they're Pacific time, right? So that means that you want to take into consideration the time zones because you don't want to be across the world and then your clients can't reach you. So I always say when you're traveling or if this is something that you enjoy doing, you're always being cognizant of like, what are the time differences? How far can I go? And then the third thing is unlimited earning potential. So I always tell people within this industry, you can make a lot of money. And I always set the notion that when you become a virtual assistant, that should not be your end goal. And I'll tell you why. As a virtual assistant, right, you'll start off working with clients and let's say you start hitting 5K months, right? But you have to remember, in order to get from 5K months, if you're working with 2 clients and they're paying you a total of $5,000 and you get another 2,000 and you get another 2 clients, that's okay, 10,000, right? So now you're working with 4 clients, right? But you have to remember for each client, you're maybe working 30 hours a week with them or 30 hours a month. Time adds up, right? And the reason why you started this business is to maximize your freedom, enter into a different space. So when you start as a virtual assistant, and what I always tell people is think that the sky is really the limit, but it means that you should like say like, okay, I want to start this to, become financially free, but then eventually I want to potentially coach people. And then from coaching people, I want to potentially come out with a course because you have to remember that when you start a business, you're doing it to like trade out your freedom. You're saying like, I don't want to work this many hours. I want to be able to have passive income. So I always tell people when you start this business, it's eventually to move to passive income. And passive income is basically you're being able to make money while you sleep, right? So at this point, right, when you're first starting your virtual assistant business, it's going to be a lot of just you, right? So it's you talking to the clients, it's you following up, it's you doing the emails. But when you think bigger and your mindset is larger, it's like, okay, well, I can then eventually hire a team and my team can help me. So I always tell people like, you can earn a lot of money in this industry, but do not start the virtual assistant business to then become like this is like another job. It shouldn't feel like another job. So I always set the notion like, you have to set the notions, you have to set the tone because you are calling all the shots, which means that you have to have a game plan of like, how can I get from like virtual assistant to like now I'm running my agency and I'm hiring people to do the work. And then the third thing is low startup costs. So in order to get started, you don't need fancy equipment. I always tell people you can use a laptop is fine. Laptop and Wi-Fi will get you very far. You don't need the website, you don't need the CRM. Those are all nice to have, but if you don't have the means to get them, don't worry about it. Start with what you have. And I always tell people, and it's human nature for us to like say like, oh, well, I don't have that, I can't start. Start anyway, right? I pulled in a lot of business with no website, no CRM, just me and my resume, and people like really networking my way like to get to the next level. So I say, do not count yourself out by saying, I don't have. I do have, I can find it. Like everything lives on the internet. So I really do tell people like, you do not have to do the most to get to the next level. Just start. And then the last thing is growth. I think that's a large part of becoming a virtual assistant, is that you are able to grow a lot in this industry. You can learn a lot. I've learned a lot. I've learned more being a virtual assistant than in my college degree. Like I've learned a lot. I've learned how businesses run. I've learned how to manage money. Like I've hired people, I've fired people, like things that I've never thought I would do. I was able to do it by being a virtual assistant. So you can really grow within this industry. And then I think a large part of like, what are the cons, right? We talked about the good side, but there's a lot of bad sides to being a virtual assistant that they just do not tell you, right? So opportunities do not just fall in your lap, right? So there isn't like a website where you just are like finding opportunities and applying and sending your resumes. As a virtual assistant, you're constantly looking for clients. Especially in your beginning years of being a virtual assistant, you have to look for opportunities. Opportunities are not just going to fall on your lap. And I always tell people that like, if you are not somebody who is going to go after it, this is not the industry for you. So like, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to talk to people. You have to network with people. People are not going to know you exist if you don't like talk to them and say like, hey, I'm a business owner. This is what I have going on. So I always tell people like, you have to put in the work. Clients don't just fall in your lap. Even if you're a part of our job board, you still have to apply to the opportunities. They are not just going to come to you. You have to like literally take yourself, go on your laptop, fill out your resume, rework it, apply, do the interview. Like it's like a job getting clients, right? But then it's the freedom behind it of like, this client, I'm working 10 hours and they're paying me $1,500. Jobs don't do that. So I always tell people it's super important that you have to put in the work. It's not as easy as I'm a virtual assistant. It's like, okay, I'm a virtual assistant. I have all my systems and processes in place, but now I have to like put in the work to get my first client. It's a whole job just to get your first client. So that's something to keep in mind. And then I would say, if you don't work, you won't make money, right? So it brings me back to the biggest point, right? Of like, when you start this business, do not start it thinking that you're just going to be a virtual assistant forever. Because even me, and I'm, like I said, I keep it honest. My goal is not to just continue to work with clients. It's to then pull out a course, then from the course, do this, and then launch another business. Like my goal is not to stay in this. My goal is to use this opportunity to propel me to the next thing. So I always tell people, use the opportunities that are presented to you to get you to the next level. Maybe your goal is not administrative virtual assistant. It doesn't have to be, but you can use this opportunity to bring you in an additional $5,000 a month, $10,000 a year. Like whatever it is, you can use this opportunity now and let it get you to the next level. If you want to open up your own restaurant, use this as a side hustle to propel you forward. This does not have to be your end all be all. There's people who have done this for like 2 years, stacked their money, and then left. You don't have to stay here, but this is an opportunity that you can actually use to get you to the next level. And then the third thing is that this industry can be very lonely. So when I first started, I was like glued to my laptop. I'm still glued to my laptop. And I'm like this because I'm like, okay, well, I'm a grind. But it's super important that as you're grinding now, you could take a break, right? Like so like in my life right now, I do sprints. I'll go hard for like 2 months and then I'll go on vacation for a month. So I work in sprints because that works for me. So I say that like within this industry, and why I really created the Virtual Hustler is so that you have the Slack group, you have me, you can ask me your questions. I always respond. It might not be instant, but you'll get a response. But I say it to say that within this industry, it can be very lonely, especially when you stop going to work, or like if you work from home all the time. So a large part of my time is spent just looking at my laptop. So I say to say, if you are a people person, it's super important to create a community, create a work-life balance, which is the next one, because that's hard to do when you work from home. It's very hard to say like, okay, well, work is done, life is happening. So I always tell people like, it is hard, but like create opportunities around you, right? So every week I'm like, okay, where are we going out this weekend? Because it's super important. And as you're building the business, you will get glued to the laptop because it's like, this is what's making you money. When you first tap into your first client and you see how much money you can make with one client, you're like, okay, yeah, me and the laptop is best friends. So I say to say like, create friends outside of this, like everybody that you are talking to or that network with these people. When I first started within this business, I literally was like trying to find different virtual assistants that look like me to help me get to the next level. It was people around me that put me onto opportunities that allowed me to get to where I am. So I say to say like, she might be doing the same thing as me, but she can help me get to the next level. So I always tell people, do not be afraid to make friends. A large part of like when I started my business, I did a lot of bartering, which means like, okay, you do this for me, I'll do this for you. There's no money exchange, right? Because as you're building your business, you don't have money to just be paying all these people. So use what you have, use the network around you. And then the last thing is that you're gonna wear a lot of hats within this business. You're gonna be like, it's like you're really starting a business. You're doing emails, you're managing, you're running payroll, you're like figuring out, like you're just doing everything. So it's important to understand that like you're doing everything and you're not compensated for it at first, right? You do not benefit from this in the beginning, right? But you have to see the long-term growth that you can have. All right, I did a lot of talking. I think I talked about this before, but these are like my favorite systems to use. These are, and I always tell people within the virtual assistant industry, virtual literally means digital. So if you are a digital assistant, which is basically a virtual assistant, it means that you need to be equipped with the necessary tools and skills that are out there. There are so many systems that I don't know how I would operate if the system didn't exist. So I say to say, as a virtual assistant, even if you're not digital, even if you're not tech savvy, it's important that you start learning these tools, these processes, these systems to help you. These help me run my business. These systems right here allow me to say, okay, well, I don't need to be here because this system is in process to help me run my business from anywhere. So I say it to say, learn the systems. You don't have to learn all of them, but it's very important for you to be equipped with these because these are what business owners are using in their day-to-day to run their business. And as a virtual assistant, you should basically use this as a key, like, okay, well, let me learn some of these systems on here so that when I'm networking with other business owners and they're telling me about HoneyBooks, I know what HoneyBook is and I know how to run HoneyBooks. And I can literally become a CRM virtual assistant. So I say to say that like being able to be one of the top virtual assistants means that you need to learn systems, tools, operations. It's no longer about, okay, I can just answer emails. I can just follow up with people. It really, how can you make this business owner's life more efficient? And you make it through having these systems. And then these are some of the skills. I mean, these are pretty basics. Mindset is the key one. If in anything, you can have everything. It literally boils down to your mindset. That is it. Like you can have all the skills, time management, organization, communication, but if you do not have the mindset of how to be like that you are a virtual assistant and that you are resilient and that you deserve to like actually like be a part of this industry and like really be able to like capitalize on it, you won't make it. Because, and I tell you, because in my journey, it's my mindset that has gotten me this far. It isn't anything else but my mindset, because when you're in this, there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. I have ups and downs all the time, but it's your mindset and the discipline to be like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep going. I've lost big clients, huge clients. I've gained bigger clients. So I say to say that it's your mindset that keeps going. I've lost I think last year, I lost my biggest client. And guess what I did? I kept going. it doesn't matter, you know? So I say it to say that that is what's going to keep you, because some people with that, they're going to be like, oh yeah, this business, I'm done with it, right? But I always say, use like a lot of the challenges you'll face, it'll prepare you for the next level. So like me losing my biggest client, oh now, now like months later when I got a bigger client, I was like, I didn't even really miss nothing. So I say to say it is when you're going through this journey, it's your mindset is that's going to keep you grounded. It's the discipline of showing up, even when shit hits the fan, because things will hit the fan and you'll be like, all right, I don't even know why I got started in this business, so on and so forth. So I really do say like, these are key skills you should have. Yes, you should know the systems. Yes, you should have communication skills, but it really boils down to your mindset. And then these are the different types of virtual assistants that you can be. There's a lot of them. So social media, CRM, YouTube, content writer, there's so many types of virtual assistants that you can be. You just have to figure out what do you want to do? What are you good at? Not what do you like, what are you good at? And what do you enjoy? And then that's when you can be like, okay, well, I want to do this. So figure out what you're good at, figure out what system, what process you enjoy, and then use that. All right. Okay. And then where can you find clients? This is a large question. I really want to get to the questions because I'll be talking forever. But these are a lot of the places where I get, and I found clients when I first started. So Facebook, Google, Idealist, LinkedIn, friends in general, right? Like your network is your net worth. So I say to say that sometimes a lot of my friends are business owners or they're entrepreneurs, which means that they're always looking for something. So instead of them hiring somebody else, they can hire me to do it, especially if that's within my expertise. And then I would always say your chamber of commerce. So within every city, there is a chamber of commerce. And this is basically an organization that they collect they collect all the business owners that have registered. So I always say it's good to network with these people. You never know what like a simple just searching on their website looks like, and then being able to like find them, see an opportunity, and like actually potentially work with them. Instagram is my favorite. That is where I find majority of my clients on Instagram. That's how I got my first client. And then the Virtual Hustler job board. I always tell people this, that is an opportunity where opportunities, you don't have to look, they're like right there. There's a bunch of them for you to apply through. The social media manager, there's so many. It really is up to you. And what else? Okay, so I think that's about the end of my presentation. But if you are not in the Slack channel, I highly, highly recommend joining it. We're like reworking it to like make it better in a sense that like there's active communication. I feel like people only kind of talk when there's like a question, which is fine, but the goal is to like have active going on communication. So definitely if you are not in the Slack, definitely join. And then in the Slack channel, once you join, all you have to do is take a picture of this if you aren't already on it. This is free, you don't have to pay for it. The portions that you do have to pay, which I always tell people, is the job board. If you are interested in the job board, you can go onto our website where you can purchase the job board. The job board is a list of opportunities. We share opportunities pretty much every day or every other day where you don't actually have to look for businesses. They're right there. They're like, these are the people that are hiring. These are the virtual assistant opportunities that came into my inbox that I'm sharing with you. And I always tell people to do that. And then the other options to work with the Virtual Hustler agency is coaching. So I always steer people towards coaching if you are new in this business or you are trying to grow. And I say it to say that, like I said, when I first started within the industry, I DIY'd everything myself. I did good, but it took me a long time to get to where I am. So I say it wasn't until I invested in myself that I hit my highest month as a virtual assistant. Wasn't until I made like, I think it was like $5,000 investment where I really was like, okay, now I know what's going on. Like now I'm here, I'm ready. So I say to say that, and I know sometimes it's scary to invest, especially when you don't have the means to do it, but you are like, you can DIY, and then you're gonna hit a stop. And then it's like, you're gonna stay there. And that was the same thing with me. I hit a stop where I was just hitting 5K months. I couldn't pass 5K. It was like, I was getting more clients, but I was still at 5K. It just wasn't making sense. But when you invest in people, the world has a way of working where you will make the money back plus more. So I say it to say that if you are interested in coaching, you can definitely use this as an opportunity to either coach with us or get the job board. It is up to you. You don't have to do it. You can join the Slack for free. But I always say, invest in yourself. You'll see the money back. You'll see the return. And then, like always, I always like to give people money off. If you are interested in coaching, you can use 2022 for 10% off. And then from there, we'll see you. So we're going to jump into the questions. I think that is all the PowerPoint. I talked a lot, but I'm ready for questions, answers. I think I'm going to like see how I could unmute everybody. Okay, wait, I think I unmuted everybody. Okay, I don't know. But if you have a question, you can either raise your hand or how do I do this? I think you're free to unmute yourself if you do have a question. Oh, y'all don't have a question?
I have a question. I don't know if someone wants to go first.
No, you can go.
Awesome. My name's Angela. I'm from LA. So right now I only have one client. I barely started a month ago. So I am looking on to take more clients. And so I was wondering kind of like, do you suggest like doing packages or like per hour?
I think it depends on you. I always tell people to do per package, but when I started out, I was doing hourly. The reason why I say per package is because you'll find that you're working, like you'll work 10 hours. So like when you're basing your packages, it depends on hours. So let's say you have $1,000 package for $10. I mean, for 10 hours. Okay. Usually when a business owner is purchasing that package, it's like they're committed because they've already put in the money that they're going to pay you that $1,000. Whereas hourly, if I only have 5 hours of work for the month, it's like, are they really going to pay you? Like, you know, are you only going to get the 5 hours? So I always tell people that it's best to do packages because you can package like your expertise and say, well, I have a 10-hour package, a 20-hour package, and a 30-hour package. And usually within your discovery call, those are key things. It's like, hey, what are you actually asking for as a business owner? And then you basically saying like, oh, I think you should go with our 20-hour package, which is $2,000. It includes this and this, and it's accumulated, like it's about 20 hours a month. So I highly recommend, I highly recommend package. I do think there is sometimes beneficial, depending on like what your expertise is, of saying like, okay, I'm going to do an hourly, or if you're working with like if you're working on like a project, I will say depending on like your rate, that is also like another thing. So if you're charging on the lower end of like $20 an hour, you also have to accumulate like how many hours is it going to take for me to get to what I'm trying to make or what my goal is. So I think that's also important. It really depends on you, but I say like take some time to like figure out like, okay, if I do a package, what's that going to look like? What's the pricing? And if I do an hourly rate, what is that going to look like?
Okay. And is usually the hourly that you present, I mean, not hourly, but kind of like the hours, is that per week or per month usually?
It depends on you. I've done usually it's per month.
Okay.
Usually it's like 40 hours per month, and then they would pay this hourly rate. So that's why I always say with the discovery call of asking like, okay, what are you actually looking for? And that's why I say like when you're jumping into these discovery calls, like one, they should be filling out like a whole, like a list of things, like
Luca, get out,
an actual form prior to you jumping on the call, so that you can extract all that information. So that you know, so that they're like, if they need email management, it's not going to take 40 hours. So I always say, and then the other part that I just want to say, because it's on the top of my head, is that when you're doing these packages, you have to remember, and it's super important to include in your contract, if a business owner doesn't use 40 hours, what happens? They paid you the money, and what happens?
Right.
Are they going to send you the money back? So I always tell people, and this is what I talk in my coaching, of like either having a clause, even having it roll over. But the thing with rolling it over, then you need to track every single hour you work to. So it's like a whole thing of like what you need to do, but those are key things to think about. That's why I say like, when you're on that discovery call, figure out like, what are you actually asking me to do? Yes, it would be great if they're like, you have a $40 client, but like, as a small business owner, you're going to make sure you get every single hour in because they're paying for that. So it's super important just to keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's where I'm at right now. Like, for example, like this week, I'm having like a really slow week. But because my client, like I started out as his nanny and he promoted me to be his assistant.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that trust where it's like he's still gonna pay me, but
Mm-hmm.
like I bring on new people, it's that
Yeah. So
you know
I would say maybe try and get, and I think maybe try and move towards like a package, but if not possible, like stick with the hourly. But like I always say, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. That was like, start definitely look for other clients as you're going through it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, next question. Yeah, I don't have no
Okay,
questions.
I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so when I was like looking through your website and I saw that instead of you having like a detail, like well, it was detailed, but instead of you having like more of a when the website is like extremely long, you just had like an application
Mm-hmm.
that the client could fill out. So I was wondering, like, do you feel like it's more efficient? Because I know some people like they look and they're like, oh my God, I don't want to read all this.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like, do you think that it's better than having, because I'm in the process of getting my website set up and I just really want to know like what will make it easier for people to navigate through it. So it's like, do you prefer like us just having like a simple application and then like we call and we get that
Mm-hmm.
together?
That's
Or
a good question. Yeah, that's a good question. So I always tell people, do not mimic what I do. So all my clients right now in this point, they come through a referral. So they're like, I'm usually not looking for clients. They're coming to me. So within Minds, it's more of like, okay, this person is going to me because they referred to me. But when I first started and I had a CRM, I had all the details in the world, right? Because you have to remember, nobody knows you exist. And that's where everybody starts. So I say it's better that you have all the details and then the form so that they're like, oh, okay, this is what I'm getting. This is what it is. Cool. Do not do what I do where I just like, because like now where I am at, it's like I don't have to explain myself. You've already heard that I'm good. And then when they go into the application, they'll be like, okay, I already, so within the CRM, what I'm trying to say is like, you can set it up as like, I think you should have a one pager that basically explains what are your services and what are your packages. And then with your application, you ask them all the necessary questions, right? And then whenever they answer the questions, it should automatically sync into your CRM. So on the back end, you get all that information and then you can set up the discovery call. But I do think, I say this all to say, you should have like what you're actually like, what is the business owner going to pay for? Because I think that will like definitely stop you from having to answer the same questions over and over. But do not do what I do of trying to like do that. I do it intentionally because it's like I'm only looking to work with a certain group of people or it comes through a referral. So I say to say when you're first starting, have the landing page, have all the necessary information, and you'll realize like as people go through the funnel of like, okay, a business owner is interested, they go through it, you'll like make tweaks along the way to make it make sense.
Okay. Thank you. I was just looking at that.
No worries. Okay, Morgan, what's your question? I just unmuted you. Wait, can you hear me?
Okay, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
So how do you space out your time? So if I wanted to just do all 10 hours, just like as soon as they pay me, would that be okay? Or how would I do that?
So your question is if you wanted to, I don't understand your question. Your question is if you just want to do 10 hours like in a week? Did I?
Okay, I think I pressed mute again, but I'm saying like, would it be okay if you just did your 10 hours like as soon as they paid you? So like the next day you finished your 10 hours, would that still be okay, or would it be weird because they'd be like, oh, you finished all the work, like now I have to pay for more because you did 10 hours? Or
Oh, I get what you're saying. So usually, and that's when you're talking about 10 hours. So when you're doing packages and you're like, okay, this is 10 hours, it's an agreement between you and the business owner of what that 10 hours looks like. So the business owner is going to be like, okay, I need this, this, and this, and this done. And usually it's like week by week. So like you might reach out to the business owner on Monday and say, hey, I need this and this. And then the business owner might reach out to you and say, I need this and this and this by Friday. And you're like, okay, well, this is going to take me 2 hours, or this is going to take me 3 hours. But the business owner, if they've only hired you for 10 weeks, they're trying to get you to do multiple things in like the month rather than the week. Does that make sense? So it isn't about like how fast you can get it done. It depends on what it is. So like if a business owner hires you for like a project, that's a little different. Like if they're like, hey, I need you to clear out this database, that's different than like them asking you to like do email management, which would be over time. Does that make sense? I think you muted yourself again.
sorry,
Oh,
but that does make sense. Yeah, I
Okay.
understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kimmy, what's your question? I'm gonna see some in the chat as well.
Hi, my question is, I am trying to establish myself as a VA, but I've had a potential client ask for like a portfolio. Do you have to, I don't know how to, I guess, generate some type of work for them to view. Like I've done presentations in like corporate world, but I don't have anything, like offhand that I could give them. Do you have like any tips on that?
So I would say with the portfolio, you can create it off of Canva. I think Canva is like the most aesthetically pleasing one, and it's pretty easy to use. I think for portfolio, really what I always tell people, have your name, have what your packages look like, and then include your resume. I think that's a large part of like what your portfolio is, but it isn't just taking like your corporate America resume and plopping it in there. It's basically extracting like, what are the key things that basically you're going to do for the business owner that you're saying, I've done this in like the virtual world or like in corporate America. And then in terms of, and I guess a question for you is, are you just like an administrative virtual assistant, or are you like a social media manager? Like what type of virtual assistant are you?
For this particular client, she's a hairstylist, but she has products that she, generates and like publishes like presentations on Instagram, and she does like webinars and things of that nature. So she's like asking for just like something to show my work, basically.
So it's more of like social media management.
Yeah.
Okay, so if it's social media management, have you managed anybody else's social media before?
Aside from mine, no.
Okay, so I think what I would do is like maybe create graphics for her potentially. So I think, and like, that's why I say like that would be like a key, and that's something that I usually do of like, if I'm trying to stand out and I really want the client, I'm gonna go above and beyond. That means like, okay, hey, I don't have a portfolio, but this is what potentially me and you looking like, this is what it looks like. It might look like free work, but I always say like, if it's a client that you're interested in and you don't have the portfolio, show them exactly what you can do. Put together 4 graphics of like, hey, I think this goes in here, like this would be like a nice thing that you can put together on your Instagram, or even just create a PowerPoint presentation if she's like specifically asking for something, especially when you don't have a portfolio. And then I think the other thing that I've learned is that like, whenever you don't have something, you can also just create it. Like you can create like examples of like, hey, this is a business owner and this is like what they, like you can create graphics for different business owners and like put it together as your own. It doesn't mean that the business owner actually used them, but I always say like, use what you have. If you don't have it, make it up. And I say make it up, like if you are actually good at like social media graphics, like putting together a potential graphic for what it could look like for her within your portfolio, she's gonna be like, wow, 1, you went above and beyond, 2, you nailed it, and like 3, I want to hire you because like you did the initiative to like kind of show me what it would look like working with you. Does it make sense? Oh, I think you muted yourself.
Yes, that makes sense. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. What other questions do you have? Alexandra, and then I'm gonna do some in the chat.
Okay, yeah, I saw people were in the chat as well. I didn't want to like take up so much time. So, but my other question was really about managing like my social media because basically managing my social media for my virtual assistant business. Like, how do I like what when I started my Instagram, I and my Facebook, I really didn't know like what else should I post? Like, what will make people appeal to my page? Like, I want it to be professional, but like also like not too informatory, like not too much just, oh, here's the information, where it's like I want them to see my personality through my page. So like, do you have any recommendations of like how you can implement that through your social media for your business and not just, so informative?
Yeah, and I think that's a good question. I think that's the kind of the same thing that I do with like on my social media of like it's informative, but it's also my personality. So it's very like like I just fill it into a box, but I say like anytime you're posting, it should be about three things. So it's like, is this informative for the business owner, right? So maybe you're posting tips about something like a CRM that most businesses use. So like HoneyBook, create a graphic about HoneyBook, like why you love HoneyBook so much, or like what are the differences between HoneyBook and Desavo? Like that is a great thing because a lot of business owners use that, right? So then you're getting traction to your page because it's like, ooh, HoneyBook and Desavo. And then I think the second thing is like incorporating reels into your content of like saying like, hey, this is me, this is what I do. Having reels that are informative is going to drive more business owners to your page because it's like that's shining through your personality. Now, you don't have to be dancing and everything, but I think like incorporating different things where people can actually see like, okay, this is actually a person. It's not just buy. It's more of like, hey, these are like tips and tricks for you. Hey, this is a good thing for you. And then I think with other social media platforms, LinkedIn, I think just using the graphics that you make to push to LinkedIn. I think Pinterest is a good one. And then I think, of course, TikTok, where it's like short clips and there's, so many business owners on there, which is something that you should always utilize because I mean, it's just where a lot of people are. So using different platforms where you're like incorporating some like standard, like informational, some standard, like you should work with us and this is why. Even if you're doing like client reviews of like, hey, my client said this, my client said this, reviews, portfolios. I think just really, I think a large part of social media is just figuring out what works. And like it takes like time, So it's like, okay, I tried this, it didn't get it didn't get a view, but I'm here again, And I think like refining it over time, there's like no key thing, but it's like creating different types of content for different people and seeing like what's really gonna like stick to your audience.
Yes, okay. I like that.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna answer some questions in the chat. Let me see. Okay. Hold on. Okay, I'm reading through them. Where are they? Okay. Is Desavo the same as Asana and Trello? No. So Desavo is a CRM and Asana and Trello are project management tools. So it's like so Asana is more of like, this is my task list, whereas Desavo is like where you're capturing information about like a potential client or anybody that's like going through your website. What system would you say businesses X for the most? I would say HoneyBook and Desavo. If they are like a service-based business, if they're a product-based business, it's going to be Shopify or like Shopify. Like Shopify is the main one for product-based businesses or like businesses, product-based businesses. So I think those are like key ones of like, if they're a service-based business, it's going to be a CRM. If they are a product-based business, it's going to be it's going to be like a Shopify. Like, can you manage the back end of a Shopify? Can you like upload inventory? Things of that sort. Hello, is the job board an annual payment or a one-time payment? It is a one-time payment. You pay once and then you're locked in for life. Oh, somebody already answered it. What would you say you need in a newsletter when you reach out to clients? What would you say you need? Yesenia, can you elaborate more on your question? I don't think I understand it. How do you space out your hours? I also need clarification on that. If you're talking about like, yeah, I need more elaboration on like that portion too. What is the best payment method? You continue mentioning packages. Package, is this the same as a contract? So your contract is different. Your contract is like the terms and conditions, and your like you include like the best payment method within that. But I would say the best payment method is like either you're doing it through a CRM, and usually like Dasabo or like Honeybook is linked up to another platform called like Stripe. Some people use PayPal. It depends on you. But I always say like, do not tell people to Zelle you or Cash App you. Like it should be coming through a CRM. Like as a business owner, you should not say like, okay, let's work together. You can just Zelle me at my number. It should be like, it's going through a CRM. You've gathered their information, you've sent them the contract, you've sent them the invoice, and then they're paying and putting in their information. Can you talk about the packages you're referring to and how can I show I can be a virtual assistant without any experience? So I think the key thing is that if you're a virtual assistant, you do have experience, and understanding that you have experience based on previous job experiences that you have. So taking like what you've done of like, hey, I used to work in retail. A retail job is something where you are working with different people, right? Like if you've ever had a retail job, you've worked with a numerous amount of people, you've upsold, which means basically like, hey, you should get this and this to get this % off. Like you're upselling, you're doing email management, whatever type of job that you've had is experience. And then in terms of packages, it basically means taking what are the services you're going to offer and then putting them into buckets of like, this is a 10-hour package, this is a 20-hour package, and this is a 30-hour package. Would you suggest a trial period when you don't have experience? Trial meaning like free, or like trial meaning like, we're going to just test this out and I'm going to pay you? Where and how can I get contracts or contract templates? I think Etsy is a good one. The only thing, and I think most CRMs also provide contracts. I think the biggest thing with a contract, and I always tell people, is that like, you want to make sure you understand your contract because the worst thing that you want to do is be using a contract that you got from Etsy or a website, and then like something happens, let's say you don't get paid, and then you're looking at the contract and you don't even understand the contract. That's like the worst thing that you can do. So I always tell people like, when you're looking to get a contract, it's super important that you like actually talk to a lawyer so that you understand what it means and that you're protected. I'm struggling to lock down clients. Does anybody have any other questions? Let me know. Oh, okay. Hold on. Okay, Alexis. I feel like I'm talking a lot.
Hi, I wanted to ask, it was a question that was in the chat, something like a trial run, and I also was thinking about doing that as well, but like my take on it was more so, like I want to do social media management for a lot of other different people. So I've managed someone's social media account and they had like a hair business, and I wanted to reach out to like either nail techs or lash techs or people in those service industries like nail, lash, and I think hair, like those 3 different services. And I wanted to reach out to them and say like, hey, I would love to manage your social media account. Probably doing like 1 week free, tips are welcome, but I just want to get more experience. And then that way, like if they end up really liking what I do, then I could pull them in as an actual client. But I wasn't sure like how to word it and also how to go about it, because I don't want it to seem like, all right, I'm gonna do this for you, but yeah, like I'm trying to like take their money or something. Like I don't want it to come off a certain type of way.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is like when you're reaching out to business owners, I think it's twofold. I think your like understanding is good of like, okay, well, I don't have experience doing this, or I have limited experience, I want to get more experience. I think like how you go about it is like saying like, hey, I'm a social media manager. This is like what I'm doing. I've created these graphics for you. Would love to get your thoughts and inputs. Maybe we can potentially work together. It's more of like a, hey, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this for free and then eventually pay you for it. Because I think a large part, and why I highly don't recommend just like reaching out to people and DMing people, is because in general, you'll get some responses, you'll get some, no, thank you, or you'll get some, oh, okay, that's good. But I think a large part is like having business owners come to you, because it makes the whole transaction different, because it's like they might like it and they're like, oh, this is really good. But it's also like your time is tied up with it. So I don't want you to get too involved with like trying to find potential people. And I think just like working backwards of like, hey, these are 4 people that I want to target. Let me create graphics for them. Let me maybe post them or share them with them. Like, hey, I created this cool graphic for you. What do you think? I'm a upcoming virtual assistant within social media manager. Would love to see if we can potentially work together, like, and then I think a large part is actually figuring out what business owners need help with. So like for me, something that I struggle with is not social media management. It's more of like, how do I get all the like trending sounds? How do I like film it? Like, how do I do all this? So I think actually building a relationship with like potential people that you want to work with is going to be super important. And then I think the last thing is like also having a social media presence for yourself, right? So I think that's a large part of what I'm seeing with social media managers. And like, I know a lot of people have been like, oh, I want to help you with social media. And then I go to their page and there's one post. Like, so I think you can't represent somebody if you're not representing yourself. So like having a good social media presence will attract people to you to be like, oh, I want her to do my social media because like she's consistent, she has posts, she understands like how to make it look aesthetically pleasing. So I always tell people also do that. So sometimes you don't need to work on other clients, but it's like sometimes you need to like get your presence together, and then people will come because they'll see your aesthetic and they'll be like, oh, like how do I do X, Y, and Z? So I say it's kind of like you can do kind of like a dual thing of like maybe try and get one free client where you're like helping them for the month, but also like work on your own graphics. And I don't know, maybe you have your social media together, but I say to say like, try and do it simultaneously.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Let me see. I'm struggling to lock down my leads as clients. I have 2 clients currently, but I want to grow to full time. I would love to niche down and work with fitness influencers, coaches, photography, and even maybe clothing boutique owners if possible. Okay, so what's your question? Like, why are you not locking down leads? Or like, I don't know if you want to come and speak a little more about it. I don't know the question. Hi, I'm from the UK. Would you say I could still get clients who are in the US and international clients just in general? Yeah, I think being a virtual assistant, you can be a virtual assistant any and everywhere. I think it just depends on when you're looking to target, it depends on who the business owner is, because I know some business owners, especially when you're working internationally, depending on how they pay you, it like always interferes. A lot of people in the US like to work with people in the US. And then if they're working with people internationally, they usually like to do it through platforms like Upwork, Fiverr, just because it's like Fiverr is the contractor rather than you, but it is possible to like do your own thing. I think the biggest thing is like, especially with pricing of like the rates of like how much money you're gonna get if it transfers from US dollar to like euros. Yes, like testing it out with the payment instead of having them pay for a package. Have you ever done that? I've never done that, and I've never like tested it out. Like if I'm hiring you or you're hiring me, it's like we're in contract. So I think in terms of like testing it out with the payment, it can be like, hey, I can do 10 hours for you for the week, and then we can see if we want to continue. I think you can do something like that. I've never done that, but I think it is something. Can you work on 2 different clients in the same hour, or would you give both their own individual hour? It's up to you, right? So like I can have 2 different clients and they're asking me 2 different things, and I have like my web browser doing one thing and then editing something else on the other side. It really does depend on you. Honestly and truly, it depends on like you and like what you want to offer, or like, and remember, as a virtual assistant, you don't have to like say like, hey, this is what I'm working on right now. It's like they give you a task and then you work on it and then you turn it back to them. How do they track how many hours you work per client? So they're your client, which basically means that you're tracking the hours of saying, so a lot of people use time trackers. When I first started, luckily for when I started, I've never used a time tracker, but I know like, I think I've used it like once, but usually when you're time tracking, it's important, especially when you're a new virtual assistant, of saying like, this is what I worked on between these hours. This is what I worked on between these hours, so that you can backtrack, especially if you're like a package, like if you're a package, if you are doing packages, it's super important, because as a package, right? Let's say you have a 10-hour package and the business owner is using that and then they go over 10 hours. Are you gonna charge them? I would. So it's important that you're keeping track of that. Always, always, always. And usually when I'm using different systems, like Harvest is a good one of time tracking. And then I think in general, CRMs have them as well. But really, like, usually when I'm like in conversation with contractors or like talking to clients, I'm like, I am at 10 hours. If you would like me to continue, and like, these are all the other additional things that you'll need. It's going to be an additional this many hours, and this is what I'm estimating. So I think communication is like a key thing from the get-go. Clockify is a good one. Yep. Any other questions? Any other questions that I can answer for you? Yeah, I don't have no more questions. Because when I jump off, it's like 20, 30 questions coming. How do you say no to a client? Oh, that's a good one. Unfortunately, this is not in my service and this is not in my area of expertise. I would love to recommend you to so on and so forth. That's literally what I would say. Like, unfortunately, this is not within my area. Like, this is not my expertise. Like, you're doing a lot. That's what it translates to. These are potential other virtual assistants that I can refer you out to. I think that's like a good question. I always, there's a lot of clients that I don't say no to clients, but I do turn them away. I'll be like, hey, you know, this, I currently don't have capacity right now. I can refer you out. And then I'll like put it in the Slack channel. And some of them are good opportunities, but it's gonna be a lot for me. So I just turn them down. What do packages look like? Where can I find examples? I can put together an example. I think people have been like asking for that, but it's basically like, this is the package is basically like, what are your services, right? So social media manager is a good one, right? So if you are social media manager for like a month, what does that look like, right? That can potentially look like, I'm going to give you 30 graphics. I'm going to edit 5 reels, and I'm going to answer all the comments and direct messages and that's equivalent to about 25 hours a month, which is really equivalent to like $2,000. It's like, what are you actually doing within the realm of like that package? And the thing with packages, don't focus too much on the hours. The hours is nothing. Focus more of like, what are you offering? What is it additionally, like, especially if you have package A, B, and C, what is different between A and C? Yes, the hours are different, but like, what other additional thing are you adding value to, so that the business owner, because remember, if I see 3 things and I'm the business owner paying for it, I'm like, how can I choose the cheapest thing? It's just human nature, right? It's like, if I have $1,000, $2,000, and $3,000 package as a business owner, I'm like, okay, well, how can I get more for less? It's just human nature. So I always say, like, what are you adding on that the business owner is going to be like, ooh, okay, this is why I want to pay this additional money, or this is why I want to work with this person. What else? Hold on. Any other questions that I can answer for y'all? Is this a question? Would you ask your clients to refer you if they're okay with it once your contract, or should your service? I think both. I think their service should definitely make you want to refer them out. But I think like within just even like your like contracting thing, it can be like, are you fine with like referring us or things of that sort? And I think in general, and like my good rule of thumb and like what has worked for me is that like now clients come to me, and that's the best type of feeling that you can have, is that you don't have to go searching high and low, like they're coming. So I say to say that like you want to set the notion and you want to set the expectation that like they can do that. But I think like your relationship with the client should be like, hey, I'm working with the client likes me, I'm providing value. And they're like, I want to tell my friends about you. Like, you're so good. And that's like how I got my first client. It was through a referral. So I think kind of both are good, but you should always ask because you never know. And I always say that, like, you never know who might know that business owner. And let's say you get the business owner to do like a video of like, hey, I've been working with so on and so forth. It's been great. You guys should like go ahead and go schedule her as your virtual assistant. Like, people, it's like word travels really fast within the virtual assistant community. And then in general, like people are more inclined to like purchase from you if they know that like you did good work from somebody else. I've made most of my money through referrals rather than me like cold calling people or like finding people. Like, you'll make a lot of good money just from like people who referred you out, who are strangers to you, but like they know somebody else. What other questions? Okay. I think good. Okay, yeah. I'll work on the package example. I gotta remember that. I'll work on it. I want to thank you for giving. You're welcome. Can you give an example of a discovery call? Okay. So discovery call. Okay, discovery call is super, super important. I think especially with a discovery call. So, and I always tell people, when you're doing a discovery call, you can extract a lot of information. So I'm giving you guys tools of my trade of what I do, right? So let's say a business owner goes through your CRM, which is basically like a Honeybook, a Dasabo, or even if they email you, right? And they're like, hey, you know, I'm so interested, like, I want to talk to you. I want to know more about like what you can offer me, right? You send them the link to your CRM or your application, as one of the women on the call said. So they fill out your application, right? Within that application, there's key things that you should be asking them. Key things, right? What's their name? What's their social media? What's their website? What do they do? Who they are? Like, there are key questions. So like and I think I posted this in one of the questions in the Slack channel, but you should ask them like, what does their budget look like, right? And it might change, but like especially like when you're going through a bunch of people, right? You want to know, is this even within my budget, right? Like, is this person even going to pay me what I'm looking to be paid, right? Another good question to ask is like, what are you looking for, right? I have these packages listed out. I have what this is, but what are you looking for? Write down what you're looking for, right? Do you have any systems in place? What systems do you use, right? Because a key thing is like, if you have a system I'm unfamiliar with, it's not that this call is a waste of time, but I want to make sure that I know how to work the system. And if I don't, let me learn, let me do some tutorials on the side so that I can still secure you as a client, right? So I say to say that like within even before the discovery, the questions in the CRM is going to make or break you, right? Because from them filling out that questionnaire that you put together, that's when you can say like, thank you so much for reaching out, automated. Thank you so much for reaching out. Would love to schedule up a discovery call. Please find a time below. And then you include your little link and then the link, and then they'll schedule something, right? I'm giving you guys the walkthrough. from them scheduling something, you should be preparing something, right? So one, you're gonna say like, once you get the notification that they scheduled it, you need to create an agenda, right? You can't show up to a call like, hi, how are you? And you're just looking at each other, right? They're not gonna leave the call. This is your discovery. So it's important that you set the tone. I usually send agendas the day before, like, so excited to speak with you tomorrow. Here's the agenda of what we're gonna be reviewing, right? So introduction to your business, and then have the business owner talk as well, right? And within that email that you're sending, say, hey, do you have any additional resources that you would like me to review, right? Maybe they put together this master list of what they're looking for. But there's a lot of questions that I ask prior, so that like when I'm like trying to secure them, and that's the point of the discovery. You're trying to secure them. You're not jumping on the call for fun. It's like, after this call, I'm going to send you the contract and the invoice, and I want you to pay. So I say to say that like within the discovery call, you set the tone. It's like, okay, she's professional. That's the first thing that they're gonna be like, okay, she's serious, right? She sent me all this from the get-go. Then when you jump on the call, you introduce yourself, introduce your business. This is what you do, but you have to also have a game plan, right? So like structure out, like, what do you want to talk about, right? It's like, okay, hey, I reviewed your this and this, but before you even do that, it's introducing yourself. From introducing yourself, after you introduce yourself, let the business owner introduce themselves. You literally, like what I say verbatim is like, I took a look at your website. It looks phenomenal, but I had some questions. Would love to let you introduce yourself. People love to talk about themselves. Like people love to talk about themselves. So let them do their whole, I'm doing this, and then from there, you can transition into other things like, okay, well, wow, okay, so based on the questionnaire that you filled out, these are some of the key things that you're looking for. Has any of this changed? So on and so forth. But like use I say to say like use the information that you get ahead of hand to build a strong discovery call in general. So I hope that's helpful, but pretty much verbatim of like a good discovery call is like, I did all the legwork to get there. I hope that's helpful. That was a long-winded, see like how I do it, but it's really saying like, okay, I had them fill out the information. I've checked out their website. Do they have any recent blogs? I checked out their Instagram. And then what I like to do is I like to give like key things like, oh, I think this would be great. Like, I think, us working together, this would be like a great thing or a great project that I could work on. But I say to say, and like I said, it's a lot to get your first client or just clients in general. You have to do the legwork. You can't just show up like, hey, how you doing? Like, so I say it to say like, it's super important that you do the legwork so that you can show up confident, and then they're like, okay, she or he did not come to play, like I want to hire them. Alexandra, what is your question?
Okay, so my question was, I know like the LLC and like the taxing and everything is like a lot to go into, but what I wanted to really know is when will be like a good time, or like when do you think will be like, how can I say this? When do you know when it's like fine to brand your name, like brand your LLC? Because I know I have like indecisive tendencies. So I'll be like, I'm not feeling this name. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore. But then like, I don't know how it all works. I don't know, like, because you were going in about like taxes and government or like protecting yourself and everything. So like, do I brand myself when I start getting a lot of clientele, or like a certain amount of people where it's like, okay, like now I really need to brand my name, or it's just like, until I feel really comfortable with it, will this be like, okay, yeah.
I think it's twofold. I think key things is twofold, because I think one, I always set the notion like you should treat your business like it's worth $1 million. Like I treat the virtual hustler like we out here, like we hit millions already, right? So that's like just me in general. That's how I've always been. I always say like treat it, because you never know when something might happen and then like you are like the one. So I say that's why I always say like you should treat it like $1 million business, which means like registering it, making sure like it makes sense legally. And then And additionally, you want to build your business, right? So I always tell people, start the business to keep it long-term, right? So that means like taking the necessary steps to like register it as an LLC. And that's why I think what it holds a lot of people up. And that was like kind of what held me up. I was like, oh, I don't know what to call myself. But I always say like, it's okay. Like you can, I don't think you can change LLCs, but like, it's all right. Let's say you start the business and like, it isn't something that you want, like, you know, I do like, it's kind of like, I'm very twofold of like, there isn't like a perfect time to register it, because I feel like one, you should actually like try it before you're like, okay, I'm here, like I registered it, because it takes a lot to register it. Like I hired a whole lawyer to register the business, right? So it means that like, are you going to put in the funds and the necessary time it's going to take to build it? So I think it, like, what I'm trying to say is like, it really means like you taking a look at like, what do you really want to do? And then I think a larger part of why I think it's important to like really just do it anyway, even if 2 years from now you don't use it, right? Because one, a large part is you don't want to be using the name of somebody else, right? So let's say your name is like super like a really niche name, and then you go on Google and somebody else is using it. That's the worst thing. And I mean, it's happening to me now. I'm like, this is my name. So I say to say that it is important to register it. I think kind of look at like where you are. Like, I don't think it's like, if you aren't like working hard to like get the business off the ground, don't waste your time to register it. If this is just something that's like, oh, I'm just here. But if this is something like you really see yourself doing long-term, this is something like you've always wanted to do, I think register it. And then the other thing that you can do is register a good name where it's like, it's not only tied to virtual assistant. So our business.
I was just gonna ask that as well.
Yeah,
oh my gosh.
you can tie it to like something like the virtual hustler, and like a lot of people don't know. It does not stand for it doesn't mean that you're a virtual assistant. It means that you are doing things virtually. So that could be drop shipping. That can be like selling things on Amazon, selling it. Basically, like the brand of my business basically means that you can do anything as long as it's virtual. You can do a lot of things virtual. So I say to say, like, when you're choosing your name, don't get it like, oh my God, it has to be a virtual assistant. Like you can do something and then stop doing it and then do something else, right? Like, I think the large part, of course, you have to, I always tell people, I'm not a lawyer, talk to your lawyer, talk to people who like do this, but I think I don't want you to like get caught up that you never do it, but then I don't want you to get caught up and think that you have to do it and then you never start.
Right.
You like figure out what you ideally want to call yourself. And then from there you make changes. And then like when you get your first client and you're like, okay, this is something I want to do, register it. I think it took me like 2 years to register my business, but I was making money, but I was like, oh, what do I need it for? But I think a larger part of like why you should register your business is that you should build your business credit. If you know anything about COVID and like in general, business owners were able to capitalize on a lot of grants and opportunities if their business is registered. And I always tell people like, these are things that you want to think about, right? Like if you are really trying to build a business, treat it like $1 million business. Like as soon as you have the idea, it's like, okay, I'm registering this. It is costly, right? Like I think it's like $300, $400, depending on who you go with. I think there's a lot of other services like LegalZoom that you can use as well. But I think like understanding like what you want to do, figure out the name, and then just go register it. That's like my take on it, especially when you're like in terms of taxes and money, when you start making independent contractor money. So like you're doing 1099, it's important that you're like tracking the money and like it's not going to you and it's going to the business, because like you're taxed at a smaller bracket because you can do certain tax write-offs and things of that sort. So that's kind of my
That's very helpful.
What website is a good website to look for owners to be their virtual assistant? There is no website. So I think when people get caught, there like no website exists. Like I wish there was just like one website to look for business owners. I think key examples of where I look for it is Instagram, Facebook. I think those are like websites that you can use. I think the other one is the job board that we have of like, there's a bunch of business owners that are there and that you can apply to, but in general, like there's no website. It isn't like a job. So like business owners, especially, and I always tell people this, if I'm a business owner and I'm hiring and I have like a large following on social media, I'm gonna post it on my social media. Because like social media, somebody's gonna see it and they're gonna be like, oh, they're gonna send it to their friend. They're gonna be like, oh, friend, you should apply. So I say like, utilize social media. Like people do not sleep on, like when I come onto social media, it's to make money. It's not for fun. Like I don't do social media or TikTok or Instagram for fun. I do it because it makes me money so people can see me. So I always tell people like, use social media, like social media is free. So I think you should definitely, don't look for the website, like look on social media. And then how long are they usually? I don't know, what question was that? And Nav, you can just DM me on Slack. How long have you had the same client? My longest client is currently 4 years. When do you ask for a payment all upfront or half? So, and I think in one of my calls previously, I said like you should get paid upfront. So when you're starting as a business owner, businesses are not going to just send you $2,000 and you have not done no work for them. Like, I don't know if you think like business owners are not just gonna be like, oh yeah, you're hired and I'm gonna pay you. What I tell people to do, so there's like you can do like half, right? Like you pay half, I'll get started, and then you do the end at the end of the month. But like some in certain times when I say things like, it's really like business owners are just like any person, right? And especially when they're small and just starting out, they don't just have $2,000 just to send you right away, right? It's like you do stuff, you're helping me make money, and then you're getting paid. So I say within that contract, it's super important. What does payment look like? So like previously what I did is I get paid on the 1st and 15th of every month. That means on the 1st, I know all my clients are coming, that money is coming in, and then on the 15th. You don't have to do it that way. It could be the 1st and the 30th. But I say to say within your contract, you set these terms and conditions. So I think it's important, and depending on how much it is, you might want to break it up into 3 payments. 3 payments is a lot. 2 payments, I think at most, but I think saying like, hey, in order to get started, we need like a $500 deposit. Non-refundable. Non-refundable. So I think like key things like that is super important. But I think realistically, like business owners do not just pay you money without you doing any work, because like it's a risk for them. Like imagine you, not you, but like the person runs off with their money. So I think saying like, hey, I'm gonna put down 500 or like $500 is the limit. Sorry, not the limit, is like what we need to get started is like helpful. Yeah, you might hear, but what is the CRM versus project management? Good question. So CRM is client relationship management tool, and then project management tool is kind of like how you're going to manage your day-to-day. So one is like, they're all for clients, but like the CRM is really solely focused on like the back end of the client, of like invoicing, contracting, payments, like all that for the client. But then the project management tool is like, okay, my client gave me 10 tasks. This is where I'm tracking it. This is where I'm doing this, and things of that sort. I want to say thank you for your time. You're welcome. Okay. If you change your prices as you get more experience, would you change them or keep them at the same price? No. Yesterday's price is not today's price. Yesterday's price is not today's price. I raise my prices like every 2-3 months, but like when I first started, I would raise my price every 6 months. Like your price should never stay the same, because you have to remember, if your price stays the same, you make the same amount of money, right? So it's like, I always say like, I invest in myself. So like if I made a $10,000 investment in myself, the price is no longer $1,000. It's now like $3,000, $4,000, because I'm investing in myself. But when I say investing in myself, it means that like I have like learned new skills. I have like I'm faster, I'm more efficient, and then I'm charging them more. And that's the thing, you'll also lose clients. clients will be like, oh, I can't afford that. And you'll be like, okay. But I always say, like, as you invest in yourself, you'll feel more confident to be like, well, I'm raising my prices $500 or I'm raising my prices $1,000. I think gradual increases don't scare people away, but I think it's important that you like build the momentum, and you should always raise your price. I think for your current clients, depending on how long the relationship is, you can grandfather them in. I wouldn't do that, because it's like, if I'm getting more efficient and I started charging you $10 an hour, not even $10, $20 an hour, and like I've like grown tremendously, and my prices is now $80 an hour, like I'm not keeping you at $20 an hour. I'm just not, like, it just doesn't make sense for me as a business owner when I know I can get $80 clients. So I think sometimes you have to kind of say, like, it's been great. Like, you tell people, hey, this is my new pricing, send them an email. This is the new proposal. This is what pricing will look like. And then business owners they either have the right to say, like, it's been great, I need to find somebody else, or they'll be like, girl, you should have been raised your prices. Majority of my clients, anytime I've raised my prices, they was like, I was waiting for you to do that. Like, because I'm offering so much value that they're like, okay, well, it's either I'm gonna do her pricing or I'm gonna find somebody else. And I mean, finding a new good virtual assistant is also like another full-time job for the business owner. So it all depends on what value you're providing. What other questions do y'all have? I always go over, but any last minute questions that I can add? How would you tell the client the price has gone up? I would email them, and then I would basically say, hi, I hope all is well. You know, we've been working for 8 months. It's been great. Right now, so on and so forth is going on, or we're operating, or we're like updating our systems and processes. It's been great. Right. We are like, our company, or me as an individual is growing, and we're doing new things. We're onboarding new clients. We're increasing our rates by this amount, $45, $80, whatever it is, effective as of today. Let me stop. Effective as of March 1st. Right now we're reaching out to all of our current clients, seeing if they would like to continue with us on this effective new rate as of this date, or if not, we would love to refer them out to other virtual assistants. I always say, like, do not burn any bridges. Do not come in like, you know, they don't have to work with you if you increase your price, but like, don't burn bridges. Leave it casual. Say, like, send an email, professional email, basically saying that. I think most business owners, if you are providing value, right? So like, them paying me $1,000 more is not going to hurt them. It's going to help them make more money, right? Because they've made more than $1,000 with me. So I think like having value, and like the business owner actually trusting that like it's worth it, is super important. All righty. Any other questions? Any last minute questions? Last minute. Any burning questions that you have that I have not answered? All righty. As always, I appreciate you all for jumping on. You guys can catch me in the Slacks, catch me on TikTok, catch me on Instagram, wherever you are. I think Slack, you can always email, on Slack, you can always direct message me, and I'll answer any questions that you have. It's always been great. I will post the recording, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one. I will upload it. I'll think about YouTube. I might just upload it in the Slack channel. I'll think about YouTube. But as always, it's been great. I will see you guys. The code to the Slack, I'm gonna post it in the chat for you so you could join. Hold on, I'm posting it in the chat. All righty, y'all. Have an amazing week. 2022 is your year. Remember that each and every day. And I will see you guys in the next one.